Well, the unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in years, but some employers say they're struggling to hire.
So how are some industries handling the shortage? And what is Ohio's proposal that might help? Labor shortage is our big story today.
According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, there are nearly 10 million job openings across the country.
By comparison, there are only 5.8 million unemployed workers. America has jobs, but not the workers to fill them. The Chamber of Commerce says there's a number of reasons for the gap, many of which were increased by the pandemic. The pandemic drove nearly 3 million adults into early retirement. A lack of access to high-quality, affordable child care is another barrier to returning to work, and that lack of access forced many working mothers out of the workplace, and that number dropped by nearly 20%.
The pandemic also impacted the child care industry, which still has not fully recovered since then. Additionally, enhanced unemployment benefits, pandemic stimulus checks, and coronavirus lockdown led to Americans adding to their savings. That in turn lessened the need for an immediate return to work. However, those savings are being driven down by that high inflation, meaning many are starting to return to the workforce.
So what does the labor market look like? According to the U.S. Bureau of Statistics, the national unemployment rate was 3.4% in April. That's pretty much unchanged from the month before. It translates to 5.7 million people who are out of work. But last month, the economy saw 253,000 new jobs. Meanwhile, the labor force participation rate is at about 62%.
So what does America's labor shortage look like? This is a map from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and it measures the labor shortages by each state. States in a darker blue have a larger shortage of workers. So let's go ahead and take a look at Ohio's numbers, shall we? We can see here that Ohio's shortage is less severe than some states with 79 workers to every 100 jobs. Ohio currently has 336,000 jobs and just about 218,000 unemployed workers who could fill those vacancies. The labor force participation in Ohio is just over 61%, with a quick rate of 2.3 and with a quit rate of 2.3, and a hiring rate of 3.6.
What industries are most affected by the labor shortage? Well, according to the Chamber of Commerce, the transportation industry is facing a labor shortage, which was exacerbated by the pandemic. Food service and hospitality are also seeing shortages, with 87% of hotels across America saying they don't have the workers they need. 85% of healthcare facilities also say they're experiencing a shortage of staff. Some of it is due to burnout. And finally, retail employment also seeing shortages as stores increasingly move businesses online.
We're joined today by Rob Hayes. He's the president and CEO of Ashford Hospitality Trust. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to.
So let's jump right into it. What really is the reality of staffing when it comes to the hotel industry right now? What sort of challenges are you guys experiencing?
Sure, it's still a challenge. I think it's on the heels of COVID. We've not fully recovered from the pandemic on the employment side, and some of it has to do with a lot of people left the industry during COVID to look for other opportunities because hotels were shut down. A lot of people switched to the gig economy. So people are maybe an Uber driver, they're doing something that gives them a little bit more flexibility. And so as the hotel industry, we've been struggling to get people back and have them understand that if you come back, there's ways to advance, there's ways, new skills to learn. But there's still a lot of people that are kind of concerned about, kind of going back to a 9-to-5 job. And so a lot of it is the reality of the gig economy that we're dealing with.
So you kind of just touched on it. It almost sounds like you are providing incentives for people to come back. What are the other things that you are doing to bring people back and say, hey, this is where you want to be. This is why you should work for us?
Sure. It looks, our wages have gone up a lot. I think since COVID, our average hourly wage is probably up 20 to 30%. So we've had a lot of kind of inflationary pressures on that front. I think the other thing is to just know that there's a lot of people in our offices here, in our corporate offices, for example, that started in hotels. People that started as a busboy or a bellman or at the front desk and worked their way up to be an assistant general manager or a general manager or here a vice president at the corporate office. And so a lot of people don't realize that, if you're working at an Amazon fulfillment center, or you're working as an Uber driver, there is a certain amount of flexibility that comes, but it's hard to learn new skills. It's hard to move up the ranks. Yeah. I think what we have to do in the hotel business is show people that, no, you can come in and really make it, 3 or 4 years down the road and really advance on the way up. And so we have to do a better job of telling that story to people.
And how about this area in particular? We see a lot of tourism with the lakes. What should travelers expect when it comes to shortages at hotels? Are they going to be seeing any negative impact? What sort of changes are coming to them? But you said you're running things a little bit differently, but almost in a better way because of the pandemic, almost like you learned from the pandemic.
We did. Hopefully, we are learning how to run these hotels better. We've been doing this a long time, but there were undoubtedly lessons we learned on what customers really wanted and what customers really didn't want. So I think we are running them more efficiently. I think it really depends upon where you are in the country. Obviously where you all are, I'm not sure there will be as much staff shortages. I think where we're seeing the real shortages tend to be farther south, some of the beach communities, and then also in California. I think you're seeing people have been leaving that state. They've got obviously a variety of issues going on in that state. And so we're finding kind of unique problems in California. And then just kind of, like I said, beach markets or large metropolitan areas where it's very expensive to live in the city itself. And so people live out in the suburbs where you're having almost to sometimes even bus people in to get to your property. So kind of up in the upper Midwest and up near the lakes, it's probably not quite as bad.
So it depends on the area. Okay, well, Rob, thank you so much for sharing your insight today. We really appreciate it.
Happy to.
The healthcare industry is also seeing disruption right now. That comes from staffing shortages. This week, nearly 300 hospital workers in Minnesota signed a petition for better working conditions. The surgery workers from St. Mary's Hospital and Methodist Hospital delivered the petition to Mayo Clinic executives. They are asking for better worker-patient safety policies as well as a plan to deal with staffing shortages, specifically excessive overtime hours and then a lack of breaks. The petition also demands executives to commit to meeting with employees.
When we are continually asked to do more with less and our own basic needs are not met, the ability to uphold that value is severely compromised.
We have the understanding that there are some cases that can't be postponed or rescheduled. However, until the staffing improves, training will suffer. And we believe that will cause employee and safety risks.
In response to this, Mayo Clinic says it investigated and did not find anything to substantiate the claims of unsafe practices. Hospital leaders added they are committed to staff in providing a high-quality, safe patient care.
Even businesses here in Northwest Ohio continue to face these same challenges. 13 ABC's Ethan Watts went to a restaurant where they say they're continuing to struggle because of the lack of staff. Ethan?
Yeah, Tony, I went to McCord Coney Island. Now, the restaurant's only been open since September, but a manager there tells me that it's been tough ever since they opened. Garcia Fitzpatrick says that she started in September just to help out once a week. After a month or so, she had to help more often because of how short-staffed they were. For the past few months, she has had to work 5 days a week every single week. She says because of the shortage, some people have to work longer days, and the restaurant has actually had to close at 2 p.m. instead of at night like they had planned to when they opened.
You know, we have people come in, work a couple of days, a couple of weeks, and they just don't come back. So, I mean, if we don't have the help, we can't keep the restaurant open. And also, we need to have the business to keep the restaurant afloat, you know. So, I mean, we need the customer, and we also need employees. So, you know, it's really, really hard right now.
Right now, Gracie says they're not the only restaurant facing these problems. And if people are looking for a job, it wouldn't be a bad idea to check out restaurants in our area. Reporting live, Ethan Watts, 13 ABC Action News.
Thanks, Ethan. There's a bill in the Ohio Senate also that's aiming to help ease some of the labor shortage issues that the state's seeing, especially in the food service industry. Senate Bill 30 proposes allowing kids under the age of 16 to work past 7 o'clock in the evening during the school year. Ohio law right now prevents workers who are aged 14 and 15 from working past 7 over the academic year. They're allowed to work until 9 during the summer months. But the bill includes a measure that would require parental permission for those teenagers to work longer hours. However, workers under 16 would still be prevented from working more than 3 hours a day on school days, and their hours would still be limited to 18 hours a week during the school year. The Senate passed that bill in March and is considering it likely to pass in the House.
You can watch this full big story on our 13 ABC News app. It's available as a free download in your app store.
What do most